Hello class, today we're going to be finishing our worksheet called Completing the Square. So you should already have problems 1 through 4 finished, as well as problems 9 and 11. So we're going to take a look at the rest of them here. Notice how these problems are different than the ones we were doing before. So here, we start with y is equal to 6x squared. There is a number in front of x squared. All the problems we saw earlier, our problem started with x squared. There was no number in front. So this is going to be a little bit different. What we want to do first is identify this number in the front. This is 6. And I just want to pay attention to the first two terms here. I want to take out that 6 because we can only complete the square if x squared is by itself. So in order to do that, we're going to write the 6 out in front, and whatever's left over we'll put in the parentheses. So to get rid of this 6, we're putting it out in front of a parentheses. What goes inside is whatever is left over. So if I have 6x squared and I take away the 6 by dividing it, those 6's end up going away and we're left with x squared. So when I took away the 6, I'm just left with x squared. Now with the 12x, if I divide it by 6, 12 divided by 6 is 2, so that leaves me with 2x. Alright, so now we're left with something that just has an x squared with no number in front here. And we can continue to write the rest of it, the minus 48. Alright, so now this is like a problem that we had seen in the last lesson. We want to take this number that's next to x. So whatever number that is, we're dividing it by 2 and then squaring it. So I'm going to take this number in front of the x, that's the 2, divided by 2, we get 1. Then 1 squared gets us 1. So 1 is the number that we are going to be adding and subtracting from our problem. So let's write this out. Y is equal to 6, x squared plus 2x. Now we're going to add in the 1 just like we saw in the last lesson. We have the minus 48. And since we added the 1, now we're going to subtract the 1. One more thing we want to do though, we want to include the 6 here. If I have a number in front of the parentheses at the very front, I also need to put it in the back. So now we can just simplify. So we have y equals 6. And we want to factor what's inside of this parentheses here. So x squared plus 2x plus 1, x plus 1, x plus 1. Then we have negative 48 minus 6. So let's simplify some more. We have 6. If I have two x plus 1's multiplied together, I can simplify that by just writing an exponent of 2. And then negative 48 minus 6, we get negative 54. So this is my result when I complete the square. Okay, we can only get better at something through practice, so let's practice another one. Here, we have a 5 in the front. So in order to get rid of that 5, we want to write it out in front of the parentheses. What's left over? We're going to have an x squared. And let's divide this by 5. So 20 divided by 5, that gets us 4. So we'll have 4x and the minus 60. Only after we've done this, we have x squared by itself and we can look at the number in front of x. That's 4. So that's the number we're going to divide by 2. We get 2 and square it. 2 times 2 is 4. So 4 is the number that we're going to add and subtract into our equation. So we have y is equal to 5x squared plus 4x. Now I'm going to add the 4. We have the minus 60. Once we added the 4, we're going to subtract the 4. But I also want to make sure that we're multiplying by that 5. The 5's in the front and it's in the back. So now we can solve here. Y is equal to 5. X squared plus 4x plus 4. Well, that's just x plus 2 times x plus 2. Then we have minus 60 minus 20. Let's simplify this some more. We have y is equal to 5. X plus 2 squared. I'm just simplifying that there. And negative 60 minus 20 is negative 80. So that is our completed problem. Let's move on to number 7. I want to pay attention to these first 2 terms out in the front. There's a 2 in the very front, so I want to take that out. So we have y is equal to 2. We put parentheses. 2x squared divided by 2, we just get x squared. Right, then negative 8 divided by 2, that gets us negative 4. So we're going to have a minus 4x. And then plus 6. Now that I have this, I'm going to take the number in front of x. So that's negative 4 divided by 2. Well, that's negative 2. Negative 2 squared is positive 4. So once again, we're adding 4 and subtracting 4 from this problem. So let's write that out. We have y is equal to 2, x squared minus 4x. Then we're going to add in that 4. We're going to add the 6, and then we're going to subtract the 4. And once again, we can't forget if there's a 2 in the front, there has to be a 2 in the back. Let's simplify here. We have y is equal to 2, and now we can factor this. So something that multiplies to get to 4 but adds to get negative 4. So x minus 2, x minus 2. And then we have plus 6 minus 8. We can simplify that further. So we have y is equal to 2, x minus 2 squared minus 2. For question 8, let's go ahead and skip it. I'd like to move on to question 10 and 12. So I'd like you guys to try those on your own. And once you're done with that, let's move back to the front page. So something that I wanted to wait until later to talk about is a vertex. And a vertex is the highest point on the graph. Or it could also be the lowest point on the graph. And it's a point like any other point. So it's going to be given by x comma y. You can find the vertex very easily once you've completed the square. So that's why this is useful in math, because you can easily find the vertex of a graph. So let's go back to that first question we did together. We had completed the square and got this answer, x plus 7 squared minus 87. So let's look at the 7 and the negative 87. We're going to use these two to find our vertex. So our vertex is negative 7 and negative 87. So we're going to start to see a pattern here. Whatever this number is, I want the opposite of it. So since this was positive 7, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to call it a negative 7. And this last number here, it's going to stay the same. So since this was a negative 87, it's going to stay a negative 87 in my x comma y pair. On question 2, I have a positive 3 and a negative 68. So when I want to write my vertex, I want to do the opposite of the 3. So if this is positive 3, you want to say it's negative 3. And that last number, we want to keep it the same. So if it's negative 68, we're going to write negative 68. Let's keep going for number 3. I have a negative 6 and a negative 25. So my vertex, if this is a negative 6, I want to do the opposite. I'm going to write a positive 6. And if this is a negative 25, I want to keep it the same. It's negative 25. Question 4, we have a negative 3 and a negative 4. So our vertex is going to be positive 1 and negative 4. Same things with the ones we were doing earlier. So if this is a plus 1 and a minus 54, we want to say that our vertex is a negative 1 and a negative 54. Okay, I'd like you to find the vertex for questions 6 through 12. And once you're done with that, I'll have more instructions on Google Classroom.